When are you going to talk about Erin Pizzey being chased out of the country for starting a men's domestic violence shelter? Okay, it's another round of these are not facts, they're just things you made up to justify your feelings. Now, misogynists love to bring up Erin Pizzey and use her as an example of the intolerance and hatred that men's advocates face. Erin Pizzey is notable for starting the first domestic violence shelter for women in the UK in 1971. Pizzey tried to open a shelter for men but faced violent threats from angry feminists and had to flee the country. See? Look at what we face, they say. Except it's not true. What it is an example of is misogynists once again fabricating a complete lie and then using that lie to attack women. Because while they will happily invoke Pizzey's name all over the internet, what about Erin Pizzey? Look at what happened to Erin Pizzey. What they refuse to do is actually engage with anything Pizzey has written or said about her story, such as her various newspaper interviews or her autobiography, This Way to the Revolution. And Pizzey's been clear that what actually happened is that as a result of her years of work around domestic violence victims, she came to a number of conclusions and observations. And Pizzey, who we should note is not a therapist, social worker, or trained mental health professional, put forth her opinion that there are two types of domestic violence victim. There are those who are genuinely trying to escape violence, and then there are those women who Pizzey saw as every bit as violent and abusive as the men they were fleeing, that these women would return to and seek out violent relationships, that they were addicted to violence. But any mental health professional will tell you that this behavior can be a response to trauma, which Pizzey herself also recognizes. And it was for these views that Pizzey found women were speaking out against her and her work, organizing protests, saying that she was blaming victims and provoking male violence. But she didn't just face opposition from feminists. In her book, she details a frightening encounter one night where a group of young men show up to her home and start chanting Erin Pizzey, black, 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 out, 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 which she understood to be a genuine threat against her household from the National Front. The National Front is a group of far-right ethnic nationalists who are fans of the Mustache Man and laundry detergent, if you catch my meaning. Saying that while the hostility she faced for her views on domestic violence was unpleasant, it was worse to know that she was now a target of the National Front. Pizzey specifies it was a number of factors, mostly her ousting from the refuge she founded, her growing legal battles and very real threat of a prison sentence, concerns that her son was falling in with the wrong crowd, her desire to escape the influence of David Astor, that all led to her decision to leave for New Mexico, where she would again face harassment from local racists. She never mentions it being in any part about threats over the men's shelter. And it would be surprising if she did, since the men's shelter had already failed 5 years before. Pizzey's also talked about why the men's shelter failed. She struggled to find funding. The same men who happily donated to the women's project wouldn't donate a penny to the men's project. She also says she naively believed that the men's shelter would run like the Chiswick women's shelter, where those in the shelter would come together as a community to look after the house and take care of each other, cooking and cleaning. What she instead learned was that filling a shelter with men had them disappearing into a room and sitting helplessly on their beds, or else sulking because there was no one to run the place and take care of cooking and other practical matters. In vain, we talked to them about the setup in Chiswick. We talked about self-help. We talked about their responsibility to take care of each other. We met with blank silence. The men were not only unwilling or incapable of caring for each other in the house, but we were unable to get any male volunteers to help out. It was the unwillingness of men to donate their money, to donate their time, that prevented the shelter's success. And we see this time and time and time again with other activists who've tried similar projects. Pizzey's story is an incredible opportunity for men to call this out, to address that the biggest problem men's activists face is not feminists, it's the apathy of other men, men who refuse to donate their money or give any of their time and volunteer for causes like men's shelters, but have all the hours in the day to pick fights with people on the internet and lie about it, which not only does nothing to address the real problem, but continues to leave thousands of vulnerable men without support and resources.